Here we go. Hey everyone, we are live. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me on this Wednesday night, May 15th. And there's nobody here, so this is not the correct one. Okay, what is going on here? Oh boy. What is going on here? 37, 40 people waiting. Okay, what's going on here? What's going on here? Oh, got anything going on here? Nope, 40 waiting. Okay. What's going on here? What is happening? Oh, there we go. I think we're back. Actually, I think we got something going on here. Apologies for the technical issues. Hey everyone, welcome to this live episode number 289 of the All Dolphins podcast. On this Wednesday, let's turn off this light, see if it helps. No, actually better with the light. On this Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, NFL schedule release day. And we got the Dolphins schedule. And before we go any further, let's take a look at it, shall we? Here's what it looks like for those who have not seen it. So we have, again, for those who have not seen it, you can read it, or I can read it very quickly. Sunday, September 8th, Jacksonville at home. That's the opener, 1 p.m. Thursday night, September 12th, Buffalo at home in a Thursday night game, 8:15. Sunday, September 22nd, at Seattle, 4:05 p.m. Monday, September 30th, Tennessee at home. Monday night game, 7:30 p.m. There's a second Monday night game that night as well at 8:15 p.m. between Seattle and Detroit. It's one of those deals where they do the scattered starts and give the viewers options of two games. Didn't work out well for the Dolphins. Last year when they did that, it was also the Tennessee at Miami Monday night game that was going up against Green Bay and the Giants, and we all know how that played out. Week 5 is Sunday, October 6th at New England, 1 p.m. Sunday, October 13th, week 6 is the bye. Week 7 is at Indy at 1. Week 8 is Arizona at Hard Rock Stadium at 1 p.m. November 3rd on Sunday at Buffalo at 1 p.m. Not too bad in terms of what the weather is going to be like. It's not like the Dolphins were saddled with a December game at Highmark Stadium. So there's some compensation there. Not ideal that the Dolphins get Buffalo at home. In a night game, September at home for Buffalo is good. Night game kind of negates the advantage the Dolphins otherwise would have. Monday, November 11th, Monday night game against the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium. Sunday, November 17th, Las Vegas Raiders come to Miami at 1 p.m. This is the Christian Wilkins return game. Sunday, November 24th, it's the New England Patriots at home, 1 p.m. Thursday, November 28th, which is Thanksgiving Day, Dolphins have a night game at Lambeau Field in Green Bay against the Packers at 8:20. Sunday, December 8th, it's the Jets at Hard Rock Stadium at 1 p.m. Sunday, December 15th at Houston at 1 p.m. Sunday, December 22nd, San Francisco 49ers at Hard Rock Stadium. That's a 4:25 p.m. game, which is a national doubleheader game on CBS. Another Sunday night game, Sunday, December 29th at Cleveland at 8:20 p.m. Might not be very warm at that time of year. And then the finale is January 4th or 5th at the New York Jets MetLife Stadium. Time to be determined, date to be determined. The NFL always reserves the right, or actually always schedules those week 18 games 6 days before, obviously dependent upon the standings, which is what led to the Dolphins game against the Buffalo Bills last year being selected as the Sunday night game to close out the regular season. So initial thoughts, we're going to get to the viewer comments and questions and interact with you guys. Some quick thoughts here on this schedule. Starts off nicely with 3 or 4 games at home. However, and those are against Jacksonville, Buffalo, and Tennessee in the first 4 weeks. However, 2 of those are night games. And again, if you've lived in South Florida and you've been in the sun in August or September, even October, you realize just how brutal it is and how much it weighs on anybody who's outdoors, and certainly NFL players who have to deal with it for 3 hours. And considering the fact that there's shade on the Dolphin sideline, none on the visitor sideline, it does make a huge difference. And that difference is negated. It's going to be humid, probably hot for those night games against Buffalo and against Tennessee, but you're not going to have a big difference in temperature on each of the sidelines. So that weather advantage the Dolphins usually enjoy in September, a little part of October, is not going to be as significant as it normally is. That's one negative. In fact, let me just start by saying, if I'm going to look at the schedule overall and be very honest, don't think the NFL did the Dolphins a ton of favors with it. And I'll explain why. That's part of it. If you like the exposure of the Dolphins getting 5 primetime games, that's very, very good. Only one of those could wind up not taking place. That's the Week 17 game at Cleveland. That's a potential flex. In the unlikely event that both the Dolphins and Cleveland are out of playoff contention or out of the playoff picture, I do not expect that. I think both teams are going to be very much in the playoff picture. But the possibility does exist that it could be flexed out. The other 4 primetime games, 2 are on Thursday night, so they're not getting flexed out. The one on Monday night's not getting flexed out. And then you have the earlier Sunday night game against the LA Rams. No, the other Sunday night game. Why am I not getting it? The other Sunday night game, I'm missing it. I'm losing my mind. It's 2 on Monday. I'm sorry. It's 2 on Monday. They're not getting flexed out. 2 on Thursday, and then that potential flex out on Sunday night. And again, if you look from week 5 until the end of the season, pretty much all games are subject to flex scheduling if they're on a Sunday, which means the Dolphins could get additional primetime games depending on how the season goes. But to get 5 initially is very, very impressive. The last time the Dolphins played 5 night games in a single season was 2004. And if you know your Dolphins history and think back, well, how the hell did the Dolphins get 5 night games when they were 4-12 that season? Well, it's because when the NFL made out the schedule, they weren't expecting Ricky Williams to bail on the Dolphins the night before the start of training camp, and then skip the entire season. And that season, if as a Dolphin fan, you would remember, complete fiasco. They finished 4-12. They were 0-7. Dave Wanstead fired his head coach midway through, or no, toward the end of the season, replaced by, no, I take that back. It was midway through when they were 1-8, replaced by Jim Bates on an interim basis. Jim Bates wound up going 3-4 down the stretch, including a absolutely crazy, wild, thrilling Monday night win against the New England Patriots when they were, and I apologize if the records are not totally correct, but it was New England was 12-1 and the Dolphins were 1-12 or 2-11, something like that. And the Dolphins came back for a 29-28 win, sealed it with 2 late interceptions, one by Arturo Freeman and one by Brendan Ayanbadejo, as I recall correctly. So logically, Dolphins are not going to be a hell of a lot better than they were in 2004. Dolphins did not get the highest number of primetime games. I haven't seen every single solitary team schedule, but I know the New York Jets, talk about blind faith in what they're going to do this year. And this is coming from someone who have said they could be problematic if their long list of old and injury-prone players all make it through. Well, the NFL apparently loves them some Jets because they are scheduled for 6 primetime games. Believe I saw it was all of them in the first 12 weeks, which is unprecedented. So we'll see how that pans out. And as I had predicted and wrote on si.com/NFL/Dolphins, which is my website, as you see under my name, this is the first time the NFL started ending the season with nothing but division games in 2010. Dolphins had never finished a season at the Jets. They had gone through every other scenario, at Bills versus Bills at home, at New England at home, Jets at home, but they had never finished at the Jets. That's going to take place for the first time this year. And again, this could wind up being for the division title if the Jets escape catastrophe injury-wise like they did last year. And yes, obviously it applies to every single solitary team in the NFL. It's just you mentioned it more at the top with the Jets because they have so many older players with long injury histories. So if that happens, if they wind up making it through unscathed, the Jets do have a lot of talent. They could give the Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills a major competition for that AFC East title. So very tough season-ending stretch for the Dolphins as we look at the schedule. Their last 6 games at Green Bay, the Jets, at Houston, San Francisco, at Cleveland, at the Jets. 4 of those teams made the playoffs last season. The only one that didn't are the Jets, and we've discussed what they could look like. I'm trying to look for a long sequence of games where the Dolphins really could make some headway as they've had the last couple of years, which is what helped get them to their really strong starts. It was 11-4 last year. It was 8-3 in 2022. I don't know that there is one. I think that maybe the softest part would be I'm looking at a 4-game stretch, the one with Tennessee at home, at New England, and after the bye you have at Indianapolis and Arizona at home. None of those teams made the playoffs last year. The Titans, obviously, we saw what they could do in a game the Dolphins, yes, they should have won last Monday night, 28-27. They wound up losing after being up 27-13 with like 3 minutes left. New England should not be very good. The Colts, kind of a wild card. I think their quarterback, Anthony Richardson, has some pretty impressive potential. However, his playing style and his physique would have me very worried if I were a Colts fan that he's going to be able to last very long. And he wound up getting knocked out by injuries quite a bit last season. Gardner Minshew had to finish out for them. But if they stay healthy, if Anthony Richardson can get lucky, maybe tweak his style a little bit, who knows? Then the Cardinals at home on October 27th. Don't see that as a game that the Dolphins should not handle. That game, incidentally, is the only one the Dolphins will play at Hard Rock Stadium for in a pretty big span. They play Monday night, September 30th at home. The Arizona game is the only one they will have until the Raiders come to Hard Rock Stadium on November 17th. So we're talking about a span in a month and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One home game in 6 weeks. That's an interesting stretch. And that stretch ends with 2 really tough road games for the Dolphins at Buffalo and at the LA Rams. So again, as I look at the schedule, no, I don't see the NFL having done the Dolphins major favors here. If we look at, by the way, and then the story I wrote on SI.com/NFL/Dolphins, the Dolphins will travel the second most air miles in the NFL in 2024, only behind the LA Chargers. And both of those teams are at 25 or 26,000 miles. But in terms of strength of schedule, if you base it solely on what happened last season, the Dolphins are like in the top 10 in terms of easiest strength of schedule. But as we know, things change from season to season. So to suggest it's an easy schedule for the Dolphins, I don't think that's necessarily the way to go. And as far as this schedule is concerned, no, it could have been a lot more advantageous for the Dolphins. Certainly, you want day games in Miami in September if you're the Dolphins, and Dolphins only got one of those. The only other bit of news for today, and also the preseason schedule has been released. The Dolphins will play, as is the case now, it's 3 games. They will start off against the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels. Let me double check to make sure I have my order correctly. Let me take it back. They're going to start off with the Atlanta Falcons on Friday, August 9th at 7 p.m., followed by the Washington Commanders Saturday, August 17th. And then to close it out, it's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Tampa Bay, the only road preseason game. And that's going to be the following Friday, which is going to be the 23rd of August. I would expect the Dolphins to have joint practices for 2 of those 3 games. And At Fan Nation sister site Bucks Game Day already has reported that the Buccaneers very much would want to have joint practices with the Dolphins. They did it 2 years ago in Tampa when the Dolphins played there, so that certainly could happen. And then the other one, Washington, Atlanta, the Dolphins did have joint practices with the Falcons last season before the teams met at Hard Rock Stadium. So there's precedent there. It's a new head coach, Raheem Morris. Trying to think if he's got any kind of connection with Mike McDaniel. Not quite sure. Washington, the head coach there is Dan Quinn, who was on the same staff with Mike McDaniel when both were in Atlanta in 2016. Dan Quinn was the head coach. This was a year the Falcons went to the Super Bowl, so they have a connection. Does that mean that the Commanders could wind up being joint practice partners for the Dolphins before that preseason game? Certainly would make sense. So, and then Odell Beckham Jr. met with the South Florida media on a Wednesday as well. This was in the afternoon. Dressed to the hilt, very stylish. It was a light-colored, white or off-white or beige. I'm colorblind, so you'll have to forgive me. But it looked pretty much exactly the same outfit Jalen Ramsey wore for his introductory press conference last year. And Odell struck a very, very nice vibe of a guy who's very happy, very content with where he is in his career. Wrote a story about it on the website. Encourage you to check it out. And before I forget, because I always do, that's how I roll, unfortunately. Please subscribe if you enjoy the podcast. That helps with the algorithm. It helps me, and I very, very much would appreciate it and would give you one of these if you would be kind enough to do that for me. And it's not doing the hearts. There we go. It's doing the heart. Okay, so here we go. How about we check some comments here, questions, and here we go. Mark. Hey, Mark, what's your favorite part of the schedule that you noticed today? Oh, my favorite part of the schedule. There's nothing that really jumps out at me as being great. I'll be honest with you. I didn't like what the NFL did. I'm very honest. I didn't like what the Dolphins did, what the NFL did to the Dolphins. Speaking very personally here, I hate night games because I'm not getting any younger. And those it's a whole lot of work, and I don't get done until the following day in the morning. And I kind of like my sleep, so I don't like it. What I like about it, 2 home games to start off with. It's the third time it's happened in the recent memory, or not so recent, 1997 and then 2019. We won't talk about 2019. That was the year they opened with Baltimore and New England, and it was the rebuilding / tank for Tua season, and didn't go well. In 97, memory serves, the Dolphins opened up with 2 straight victories. So I like getting Buffalo early. I don't like it from the standpoint of Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips' injury concern. I like having that litmus test very quickly to see where you stand against the team that you have to overcome to win the AFC East. Again, there's not a ton. I don't like the bye week being this early, to be honest with you. All the bye week is week 6. That's the earliest since 2019 when the Dolphins had their bye in week 5. If you remember that season, they played 4 games, had a bye, and then came back. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick had been inserted as the starting quarterback over Josh Rosen after the failed experiment there. So, sorry, Mark. I wish I could be more cheerful, happy about the schedule, but not totally crazy about it. Let's see what else we got. Early Bills game makes me happy. 5 primetime games is awesome. Yeah, if you're a fan, I totally get it. It's certainly a sign of respect. It tells you that the NFL thinks the Dolphins are a good draw, which they absolutely are. They're explosive on offense. They're fun to watch. Their coach is a trip, and they're generally speaking a very good team recently, and they're going to be contenders. So yeah, it makes sense. And for fans, I would absolutely be psyched about 5 primetime games. From a purely selfish standpoint, don't like it. Sorry. What else? I'm a Finns fan, Chad. I'm a Finns fan, but just got to say the Jets got hosed on theirs. I haven't broken it down. I have the week by week here. I don't have the team by team. I haven't totally broken it down. Maybe I'll do that. Evaluate the AFC schedules. I know they just have a crap load of night games, and then the Bills have 3 night games in a row, weeks 2, 3, and 4. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And I've covered this league, this team a long, long time. I do not believe I've ever seen that before. That is crazy. Chad points out they got a lot of short weeks. Yep, no, they'll do it. Okay. Eric says, all I see from the schedule is time for the Dolphins to man up and just win. Well, they've won. I mean, they were 11-6 last year. It's not like they had a bad season, but they got to do better. They got it better. Interesting point here, B-Rob. The schedule looks very manageable. Early bye helps with Chubb and Phillips' recovery. That's fair. That's fair. But you're talking about one game, except now after that, you got to play 12 straight games to close out the regular season. So I don't know if I wouldn't have preferred, let's say, Vegas come to Hard Rock Stadium on that Sunday, October 13th, and then the bye be November 17th, and take my chances against the Raiders and whoever's going to play quarterback for that team, Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. I think I'd have preferred that, taking my chance with the Raiders on that date in week 6 and have the bye in week 11. I think that would have been more beneficial in the long run. Let's go. Oh, the crazy Greek Thanksgiving Day game against Green Bay is awesome. Okay. No, I mean, it's cool. It's a lot of tradition. Dolphins back to Thanksgiving. They played, I believe the number was 7 times, 5 against Dallas, 1 against St. Louis, and once against Detroit. They have done remarkably well on Thanksgiving. They have 2 losses. One was a 1-pointer against Dallas on a last-second field goal by Dan Bailey. One was an ugly 21-0 loss. That was a 99 Dan Marino's last season. But the Dolphins beat Dallas in 73, 14-7. They beat Dallas in 1993, the famous Leon led game, 16-14 with the Keith Byers Snow Angel after a touchdown run in 2003. Nice spanking 40-21. Jay Feeler, Chris Chambers, big days. And then Detroit, they won 27-10 in 2006, Joey Harrington's revenge game. And then the mother of all Thanksgiving Day performances by the Dolphins, 77 against the St. Louis Cardinals, which was one of the only times, may have been the only time or one of only 2 times the Cardinals replaced one of these other 2 teams as the host team for one of the games, and the Dolphins spanked them 55-14. 55-14. With Bob Greasy wearing glasses and throwing 6 touchdown passes to set a Dolphins record that since has been tied by Dan Marino and by Tua Tagovailoa. Jose Carrasco, we know you love predictions. LOL. So what's your way too early 1-loss record after seeing the schedule? Why are you doing this to me, Jose? Why are you doing this to me? I'm in the 10-11 win range, to be honest. But I haven't done the game-by-game evaluation there. And I'm not going to do it just yet. It will be done. Not just yet. Okay. Chad McKay, you have heard correctly, 5 primetime games. Burr, K. Brink. It's another thing about the schedule. There's 2 potential cold weather games, maybe a third, because I checked. There was a website that had like weather info dating back, and in Green Bay last year, on November 28th, it wasn't bad at all, actually. So Dolphins might escape that one. But at Cleveland on December 29th, at night, probably not going to be very pleasant. And at MetLife Stadium on January 4th or 5th, depending on how that goes, whichever day, has the potential to not be terribly pleasant either. So we shall see. Let's see what we got. Ziggler Wigga, we see you. Yeah. I don't know what was going on there. It was weird. Very, very strange. I apologize for that little snafu. Donnie, love the schedule. By the time we play Jets, the Rogers should be done. That's possible. I mean, the first time the Dolphins play the Jets, not until week 14, so Sunday, December 8th. And yeah, I'd say the over-under on the number of games he can play based on last year. And then even the year before, he had injury issues. He had a thumb injury his last year in Green Bay. So yeah, it's not crazy to suggest that chances are he may not wind up playing there. So, and obviously Jets won't be the same team if he's not playing. However, this is very important to note. It's not going to be a situation like last year where the Jets completely collapse if Aaron Rodgers is sidelined, because Tyrod Taylor is eons better as a backup than either Zach Wilson or Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian. I mean, Jets had no shot once they lost Rodgers. So if something does happen to Rodgers, Dolphins should be favored, but it's not a game, either one of those two games. Let's see what else we got here. EJ, thank you very, very much. Much appreciated, my friend. Poop, thank you for being our big toe. Sergeant Hulka, thank you very, very much, EJ. I appreciate it. No, thank you, partner. Jets at the end makes me nervous, hoping Rodgers is broken by then because he can play in the cold. Yeah. Dude had a lot of practice at that, playing for the Jets. Yeah, those games are going to be tricky. And it would make for an interesting finish to the season if the Bills take a step back in 2024, which I wouldn't necessarily count on because, yes, they lost a lot of big-name players. We'll go down the list. Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Mitch Morse, their starting center, Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Leonard Floyd, Dane Jackson. Lost a ton of key players. One of their linebackers also, I believe, Tyrell Dodson, I believe, also left. But it's still a really good team with a lot of good players, and they still have the best quarterback in the division. So would not dismiss the Buffalo Bills just yet, but possibly certainly does exist that it could happen, that they do take a step back, and it's the Dolphins and Jets fighting it out for the AFC East. And wouldn't it be cool if I were to tell you right now, it's an interesting question. If I were to tell you right now, Dolphin fans, Dolphins at Jets, week 18 is for the AFC's title, and it gets flexed to Sunday night. You guys taking that deal or no? Please reply in the comments. I like that question, actually. Okay. So fantastic for us, in my opinion. You'll have to tell me exactly what it is you're referencing. This is weird. Yeah, Karen, I have no idea what was happening. I wasn't getting any sort of indication that I was actually going. So again, my apologies. I'm not, in case you guys haven't noticed by now, I'm not a technical wizard. This is the part where somebody says, oh, your lack of knowledge there is only matched by your lack of knowledge in football. Go ahead, you can say it. Oh, I love this. Come on. Thank you, JC. Much appreciated. Much, much appreciated. NFL took our advantage away, Eddie. You're not wrong. You are absolutely not wrong. They kind of did that a little bit. And even Jacksonville in the opener, not like Jacksonville's not used to playing in this ridiculous humidity. I mean, ridiculous. And even today, I mean, I don't know if this is foreshadowing what it's going to be like in September, but it was hot in South Florida. In fact, we broke records. It was like 104 in a lot of places, 103, and humidity on top of it. Now, even though Jacksonville is used to that kind of humidity, again, we're going to be dealing with a difference in temperature on each sideline. And yes, it makes a big difference. As Chad points out. Yep. That soft floor, Mark. That soft floor weather is no joke. It's bad. Yeah, it's brutal. St. Michael, I'm thinking 13-4 if our defense can be anywhere close to as good as they were last year. Okay. And they were good. For all the criticism Vic Fangio took last year, Dolphins were fourth in total defense in the NFL before they were ravaged by injuries where they lost, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Xavier Howard, Jerome Baker, Andrew Van Ginkel at one point or another. But say what you want about Vic Fangio being the old curmudgeon, set in his ways, unpleasant, grumpy old man. Dude knew what he was doing. So that's one of the big questions. Maybe the biggest question hovering over this team is can the defense reach the same level? And that defense, even after slipping a little bit down the stretch, still finished 10th overall in yards allowed, which was the best showing since 2010 for the Dolphins when they were 6th. So, Jason Myers, what's up, Poupar? What's up, Myers? Let's see here. Ryan, could they potentially have 6 primetime games with the last game against the Jets at TBD? They absolutely could. Yep. And I'll fess up and say I'm not on top of the latest rules exactly, even if they are definite rules in terms of the absolute maximum number of primetime games a team can have. It used to be 5, then with 6. Well, the Jets already were given 6. That would be a 7th for them. I think there are always allowances made for certain scenarios. So, but yes, I can't imagine that the NFL would have put itself in a position where the Jets were maxed out on their primetime games, and so they mathematically couldn't be flexed to Sunday night in Week 18, even if it's the best game. By far, that would draw the biggest ratings. Because understand, when we're talking about flex, us as fans want to see the best matchup possible. The NFL and the network partners want the game that's going to draw the biggest ratings, which is why there are certain teams that you will rarely see get flexed out because they draw ratings no matter what. Looking at you, Pittsburgh Steelers certainly comes to mind. The Cowboys come to mind, even if they were to have a bad year. One year, I have a hard time believing that they would get flexed out. Let's see. Niners, Week 16, if we're any good. Niners, Week 16, if we're any good. That's a great matchup. It's a great matchup. It's a standalone game like Dallas last year. That one's on CBS. By the way, for those who are used to set your watching based on the old format of which network was doing what game in the AFC, when the road team was an AFC team, it was automatically on CBS. When the road team was an NFC team, it was automatically on Fox. That is out the window now. Like, there are certain games that it just flat out doesn't apply. Like Sunday, October 6th, the Dolphins are at New England. That's a Fox game. So that's gone out the window. Don't ask me why. It's just the way they renegotiated the TV contracts. I think it probably helps with the balance out the inventory. So that's the way it goes. Let's see here. Jason, there are some tricky games. Jags Week 1, Arizona Week 8, at Indy Week 7, Arizona Week 8, and at Rams Week 10 could be sneaky tough. Not sure about Arizona. I don't know about Arizona. Jacksonville's a big mystery team because they badly underachieved last year, and I would expect them to rebound. I don't know about Arizona. Indy could be, I mentioned before. And the Rams, I don't think the Rams are going to be sneaky tough. I think the Rams are going to be tough, period. That's a good team. They may have some adjustments to make on defense because they don't have Aaron Donald anymore. But Joe, Allen learns to stream like everyone else. LOL. Not sure what that means. It means I have to learn or I have learned. I'm not sure. Steven C, 5-0 start. Love the confidence. Don't see it, but love the confidence. It's not an easy start. At Seattle is going to be very tricky. I think between Buffalo at home and at Seattle, That's very tricky. But they could be favored in every one of those games, depending on how Seattle does in its first two games. As it stands right now, I would suspect Seattle would be a slight favorite in that game. Steven says Richardson will be injured by the time we play. That's week 7. That would not be good for the Colts. Karen, hi, Karen. Glad the tech issues went bye-bye. Thanks, Alan. Yes, so am I. I didn't like I was like in no man's land and like, well, where's everybody? Okay. All Dolphins podcast. Justin FYI, the mic. Jeff, how are you, Jeff? The mic is rubbing on something, maybe clothing when you move. Just a heads up. I'm using the laptop mic, so that's weird. Sorry about that. And the truth of it is I do have actually an actual microphone. I just haven't used it. Shame on me. Shame. Bow my head in shame. Maybe I'll have to take it out for future episodes and start working on that and maybe try to look a little more professional and maybe look like I know what I'm doing on this podcasting thing. Cap for Life reports are coming out that Tua's agents and the Miami Dolphins are far apart on contract negotiations. Okay. Cap for Life, I have not seen those. By all means, please share where those reports are coming from. But they're far apart, I'm sure, depending on as we discussed on the podcast the other day, I'm sure Tua's representation saw the Jared Goff contract, pointed to it, and say that's our starting point. And then the Dolphins logically want to sign Tua for as little as possible. So would it shock me if they were far apart in contract negotiations? No. But I have not seen the report. Oh, sounds like it's better now, fixed. Okay, Jeff, I'm glad to hear that. Appreciate you. Sure no, you guys are chatting with each other. Yeah, appreciate you letting me know. Could be Can I confirm or deny the reports coming in? I cannot confirm or deny the reports coming in. I cannot, no. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me because I do think Tua's representation is going to look for big money. And I'm not sure. I think the Dolphins do want to lock up Tua. I don't know that they want to lock him up at that price. James, I see 10 wins, maybe 11, depending on how Love does for Green Bay this year. Love was so good. Man, the last 10 games, look at his numbers. Crazy. And again, it's not just numbers. I also saw a few of his games, and he was some kind of impressive. Sometimes tries to play hero ball, and that actually killed him in the playoff game at San Francisco. Tried to make a play when there was nothing there at the end, and it wound up costing him their last chance to come back. But yeah, that dude, he was good. Jeff again. Hey, Jeff. Alan, how does the schedule look in terms of the perspective of we can't beat winning teams? Do we have an easy schedule from that notion, or is this a schedule that can properly challenge us? No, they're going to be challenged. Buffalo at home. At Buffalo, at LA Rams, at Green Bay. But again, it's going to depend on how well those teams are during the year. Because I can look at it right now, and predict which teams are going to be good based on what they did last year and what they have coming back. But we have to see how the season plays out. And during the season, we'll see what team looks like a playoff team. Because the stats I keep throwing out are not against returning playoff teams. They're against teams that wound up making the playoffs that season, which is where the Dolphins are 1-12 in their last 13 games, if you include the 2 playoff games, against teams that made the playoffs in that particular season. And this is where the Dolphins have to get better if they're going to get to that next step, maybe make a run deep into the playoffs and hopefully all the way to the Super Bowl. Jason, 9-11 wins all depends on how the defense looks, and we don't have any major injuries. Tell you this, 9-8 would be brutal. It would not be good at all. Let's see. Jason, again, thank you very much. Thoughts on the late season stretch? I also think week 2 versus Buffalo could set the tone for the season, win or lose. You're not wrong. You're not wrong about the week 2. Again, this is the team that the Dolphins have to get over, even though the Jets could be a factor and it could come down to the Dolphins and the Jets. Buffalo's got to be taken care of at some point. And I think going to be a lot easier to defeat them Thursday night at Hard Rock Stadium than it is to be on a Sunday afternoon in November at Highmark Stadium. So absolutely, that's a tone-setting game right there. As for the late season stretch, it's tough. It's very, very tough. Again, with the expectation, I think the Jets are going to be very good. And you look into, there's not a free, but I think Houston's going to be really, really good because what they did last year, winning the AFC South, winning a playoff game, they did that with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. And they made some really good additions in the offseason. I think that team is there for a bit. And then San Francisco, again, their roster is loaded, and there's no reason to think they're taking a step back. And then we already discussed Green Bay, and you have Cleveland. Cleveland's the one, if there's a team that could take a step back from those playoff opponents from 2023 the Dolphins faced this year, I think it could be the Browns. Their defense was number 1 or number 2 in the NFL by the end of the season. Can they duplicate that? We shall find out. Is it the season where Deshaun Watson actually gives the Browns a little bit of a return for the crazy investment they made in him in terms of draft capital, in terms of the contract they gave him? I saw signs from him that he was starting to come around before he got hurt and landed on IR, but who knows? And if he does become that guy again, then the Browns are very dangerous. Very anxious to see, or not very anxious, but curious to see how Nick Chubb can rebound after that brutal knee injury he sustained against the Steelers last year. It's a guy you root for because, he had a brutal injury in college at Georgia, and this guy's just a fabulous running back on top of everything. So Cleveland's a little bit of a wild card, but the other 5 games in that 6-game stretch have the potential to be very problematic. So, keep looking for. James, my thoughts on Green Bay on Thanksgiving Day. I hate that it's a night game. How's that? Those are my thoughts. So it's a great matchup. And it's interesting, too. The last 2 times they played Green Bay, one of them they played on Christmas Day. The other one now they're playing on Thanksgiving. Interesting. Also, another thing, I don't know if it's lazy schedule making. I certainly don't want to say that. And it turned out to be a good game in terms of the competitiveness of it. But why is Tennessee and Miami a Monday night game for the 2nd year in a row? I don't know. They're a lot more attractive home matchups. That's number 1. Number 2, Las Vegas Raiders played in Miami November 19th last year. They're playing in Miami November 17th this year. It's a little weird to me, but okay. Love night games. How are stats for night games? Jeffrey, please be more specific in the comments about what stats you're talking about in terms of, if you're talking about the Dolphins record, it's not been very good lately. If that's what you're referencing. Last season, for example, they won at New England. They lost at Philly. They lost against Tennessee. They lost against Buffalo. I think those were the 4 they wound up with. The year before, they lost at Buffalo. They lost at the Chargers. Trying to remember. Can't remember the rest. But overall, no, I did. In terms of one-loss record, it's not been great the last couple of years. There we go. Sharif, hi Sharif. I believe the X factor is, can Tua be a playmaker, 18 yards rushing a game, 200 plus for the season, would convert 60% more third downs for this team. Your thoughts? It would help. It would help, but not necessarily. I think him and the entire team, not just Tua, the entire team just need to raise their level of play against quality opponents. I don't know that it's as simple as saying a couple more first downs rushing by Tua, or I think they need to be better on third and short, period, regardless of how they get there. I don't subscribe to the idea that it's on one guy like that. So, yep. Steelers' final 5 games has to be the most difficult in NFL history. I go back, actually, I saw a screenshot, their final 8 games, and it was like, ouch. I mean, ouch. First of all, they play in the most brutal division in the NFL. If you go heading into this season, what's the stat? Every team had a winning record last year. So you start off with that, and they play a bunch of division games. Between that, they have the Chiefs on Christmas Day. I mean, it's completely insane, that ending stretch. By the way, I didn't mention this. If you've never seen the Tennessee Titans schedule reveal video from last year, check out their Twitter page and check it out. And they did kind of a follow-up to it, a new twist on it with the same kind of thing. I mean, it is hilarious. And the Dolphins were obviously involved because they were involved last year. And last year was like, and the premise, it was last year, they took a bunch of people in downtown Nashville, I guess at a party area, non-football fans, and they showed them logo of every team on the Titans schedule. And the people on the street had to guess. And this is how we came up with the Atlanta, Florida Dolphins. Just one of 14 different teams or 17 games. Hilarious. The one this year is also very good. And check out the Chargers one, is really good. The Dolphins did something very clever with Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill. It's also cute. It doesn't quite rise to that level. I think that the Chargers year after year, and then the Titans the past 2 years, really, really funny stuff. Raiders game is going to be exciting with Wilkins. Yep. Hope he gets a nice reception. The guy was very, very good for the Dolphins for his 5 seasons. Was a good player. So very good first round pick by Chris Greer in 2019 with that one. But I don't see the Raiders. There's one of the few teams. There are 2 teams on the schedule. Like, I don't think a ton of the Raiders. I don't think a ton of the Patriots because they're in full rebuilding mode. I think Arizona, has some potential down the line. I think their coach was a good hire, Jonathan Gannon. But I don't know. I don't know if they're there yet. So we shall see there. Cap for life. Miami versus Cleveland, week 17 on the road. That's going to be the season there. Okay, interesting. In terms of what? In terms of their playoff seeding? In terms of let's see. Okay. Yes, Jason, it snows in Green Bay. What happened here? I got game New Jersey. All due respect, we had a better team last year and we're home last 4 out of 6, not on the road. Okay. It sounds like that was a comment for somebody else, but okay. Yeah, Jeffrey's asking the record for primetime games. I don't have the information in front of me. And I don't think you want me digging through the media guide, which I have next to me, but wouldn't necessarily make for a very interesting viewing. So it used to be great at one point, but it's fallen down through the past several years. And I know the last couple of years have not been good. Andrew, think the Finns have a wink post 6-1 deal with Xavier's $18 million cap savings with an unsigned free agent besides Tua, maybe safety Justin Simmons. Possible. Calais Campbell, maybe. Justin Simmons, maybe. Possible. Do understand they're going to have to use some of that cap space to sign their rookie class, their draft picks. If you notice, they haven't signed any of them yet. They were down to like a little under $2 million of cap space after signing Odell Beckham Jr. to that contract. But that's definitely a possibility that could have happened. I don't know that for a fact. I'd be lying to you if I did, but it's entirely possible. Just like it's possible that there's a team somewhere out there that's got to deal with, with Xavier Howard with the same deal. He still hasn't signed with another team. Emmanuel Ogbah still hasn't signed with another team yet. Whoa. I got game New Jersey. This team is lucky to win 9 games. Since it says I got game NJ, which I'm assuming means New Jersey. You're not a Jets fan, are you? I got game? It's kind of sound to me a little bit. Let's see. We got another one. Whoops. No, I finally got it there. Shane, how are you? Pleased to get the Bills early as they may have trouble getting their offense going early on. Will our D sell in quick enough is the question. That is a very good question. Shane, can you indicate to me, are you British or are you Canadian? And I ask because the C in the word offense. Things you learn, right? What else? Oh, thank you. My first impression, tough schedule, always great podcast. Thanks. Leonard, very much appreciated. I don't fish out compliments, but I do appreciate them very, very much. It means a lot, actually. Okay. We lost Connor. So maybe you're not a Jets fan since we say we lost Connor and Hunt, and who do we get to replace them? Well, you got Aaron Brewer to replace Connor Williams as a center, and there is nobody who replaces Robert Hunt per se because he's better than what the alternatives are right now at right guard, who include Liam Eichenberg, Jack Driscoll, Robert Jones, and maybe Lester Cotton. Who's to say the Dolphins don't go sign a Greg Van Roten, who played for the Raiders last year, and talking to my buddy Hondo Carpenter, who covers the Raiders, told me he played very, very well last year and had great Pro Football Focus grades and reviews to back that up. So let's see. I think 6 is the max, not including week 18. I think you might be right, Jason. I believe you're right. Whoa. Roasted Nuts, will this be the first Dolphins' first Thanksgiving games? I can't remember. No, as I indicated earlier, this is going to be their 8th, and they've lost 2. They're 5-2. They've done very, very well on Thanksgiving. Mark, Connor's still up in the air. Mark, if we're going to be honest about it, Connor's probably the biggest question right now with Connor Williams as it pertains to 2024, isn't it? Who he's playing for is whether he's playing. And then the next question is whether he's ever playing again. It's a really, really nasty knee injury that he sustained in that Monday night game against Tennessee. And I think any notion of him being the starting center for the Dolphins in 2024, I wouldn't count on it at all. Brandon, let me tell you something. Okay. Do I say that a lot? I don't believe that's something I say, but okay. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what that meant. Jeff, well, I guess we're muting any game Brady speaks over and streaming radio for audio. Why? Why do we hate Brady? He's no longer with the Patriots. He's no longer a factor. And no, I was going to say maybe you're going to get him in that against the San Francisco game on December 22nd because it's a national doubleheader game, but it's a CBS game. So chances are we're getting Tony Romo and Jim Nantz. Calvin, I'm sure Fox cried because the NFC doesn't have the marketable quarterbacks like the AFC does. I think the switch was made before the scales began tilting so much toward the AFC in terms of stud quarterbacks. I mean, you'd take the top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, you'd probably have 9 or 10 in the AFC. It's very, very lopsided. And the Dolphins were playing in the NFC, their life would be so much easier. So much easier. I don't know you ribbing on a play. Again, Brandon, you're talking over my. I have no idea what that means. Are you rubbing on your laptop? Rubbing on my laptop. Oh, I don't know. Oh, with my hand? Well, if I go, I don't know. I don't know what you're asking. Sorry. Definitely take the over, Karen. Definitely take the over at 9.5 wins per Vegas. Okay. Dolphantina. Do you look like I do when I have technical difficulties? Ask your kids. That's funny. I will ask them, actually. I got 2 fresh teenagers who I love very, very much. Tua change his agents. He did, but that was a little while back. I want to say before last season, maybe. But he did. Scott, so much more enjoyable when the host does not yell over you. Who, pray tell, may you be talking about? Oh, sorry. Yeah, not my thing. I am not my thing. St. Michael, I love Tua, but I'm not paying him $50 million plus a year. And that's the question, isn't it? And I'm not going to get into a big Tua back and forth here, but yep, that is the question: is how much are the Dolphins? The Dolphins have said all along, he's our guy. We love him. We want him for the long run. But how much are they willing to pay him? That's the big question. David, can you keep us informed about the player we lost this season? I don't understand the question, David. I'm sorry. Which player are we talking about? K Brink, let him play out his 5th-year option. The cold weather games will be a good test to see if he really is worth it. Okay. The only thing with that is, if we're going to be fair, he played well. It was a cold weather game in Buffalo in 2022, the Saturday night game. Dolphins lost 32-29. Tua played well that game. It's just, you'd like to see more consistency in those games against playoff opponents. So Flores was right about Love, huh? Sure looks that way. Sure looks that way. Jeffrey, possible 12-4. Nope, impossible. This is where me being a smart ass, because they play 17 games, so it can't be 12-4. 12-5 would be good. EJ, just don't see Rodgers playing for long with an Achilles surgery barely a year since, and at age 40 with signs of schizoaffective disorder. Oh, I'm not touching that last part. Sorry. Thank you, Karen. Hit the like button, guys. 266 in here. I was hoping for a bigger crowd, but we'll keep doing these, and hopefully you guys spread the word. Spread the word how good these are, and please again subscribe. And if you know fans who enjoy this and they're not subscribing, please let them know. How many wins win the division? Well, last year was 11. 2 years ago, Buffalo was 12-4, and they had the one game that wasn't played because of what happened to their player, whose name sadly escapes me right now. That's bad. Oh, the safety. So they were 12-4. So yeah, 11 or 12 would be the target number. The Texans have 3 games in 10 days against Dolphins, Chiefs, and Ravens. Ouch. Ouch. Oh yeah, that's when they have. Yeah, the Chiefs and Ravens is when they have, correct me if I'm wrong, is when they have the Christmas game, right? The Ravens. Yeah, Baltimore. There you go. Cleveland gave up 11 points per game at home last year, almost 30 on the road. They were crazy good at home in particular. They were ballers at home on defense. Okay, we'll take a few more. See what's what. We're going on about an hour here. Let's take a few more comments, questions. Orlando, please, Lord, no more injuries. Unfortunately, Orlando, that's the nature of the game. What you want is you don't want major injuries and you don't want them to keep players. But tough to ask for a major look. And here's one thing, actually, if we want to look at an encouraging sign when it comes to the Dolphins being able to overtake the Bills, is they were able to start the same offensive line for all 17 regular season games. How many times is that going to happen? What happens to their offensive line if they have to make changes on it because of injuries? Jason, Dolphin fans show up in Green Bay for some reason. I remember seeing a lot of them. They do, actually. I covered the game there in 2009, I want to say. Dolphins won in overtime 23-20. Cameron Wake had 3 sacks, and I do remember there being a very good Dolphin presence. Going to be honest, Dolphin fans are traveling very well in a lot of stadiums these days, and they actually take over a lot of stadiums. They don't, for example, losing my voice here. If they have to, when they play at Arizona again, they take over that stadium. They take over the SoFi Stadium when they play the Chargers. If I look at the road schedule this year, I don't know that there's many games where it screams where they're going to have almost a 50-50 ratio, or they're going to quote unquote take over. Maybe the Indy game, I think that would be one. Other one, and they have the MetLife takeover where they have a significant presence as well. But that's going to depend also on what the schedule looks like. Okay, let's see what we got. No, Jason, you bring a good point here. When called lazy scheduling, the NFL has to work with other events in 30 different cities and 32 teams. It's not that easy. No, correct. It's quite the puzzle. Jeffrey should be better with all weapons on offense, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends, all better than last year. But where's the guarantee they're all going to be better? There is no guarantee. And I know that's a nice talking point. Number one, yeah, you more often than not, you're going to see, no, not even. Sometimes you're going to see some improvement from year to year. Sometimes you get guys who plateau. And the other thing is, well, if that applies for the Dolphins, that applies for every team in the league. So to say that everybody on the Dolphin offense is going to improve, but their opponents are going to stay the same, therefore the Dolphin offense is going to be more dominant, that doesn't work. It's not like that. Will everybody improve on offense? No, I can't say. Could several of them improve? Sure. But, for example, we're expecting Raheem Mostert to score 21 touchdowns again? I don't know. We're expecting Devon Achane to average, 8 yards per carry again? That's a tough ask. So we got to be careful about that. That's kind of, again, that's an overblown narrative. Toby, Big Bad Toby, how are you, Toby? Thank you very much. Sucks that our only September home game is versus Jacksonville. No advantage since they're from Florida. Bad job from NFL. Hey, I'll be honest. I'd have preferred those games against Buffalo and Tennessee be at 1 p.m. personally, because I hate night games. But not my call. Thank you very much, Leonard. Much appreciated. Let's go back to a few questions here. Okay, here we go. What we got? This is Scott, QB with a losing record against top teams isn't worth $50 million a year. That's funny. Wow, printing and graphics software just signed on native pass boost bedtime. That's funny. That made me laugh. You're not that far off, actually. You really only get down to it, but no, not quite yet. If I start yawning, you guys will know that's time for me to. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jason Myers. DeMar Hamlin. Why was I drawing a blank? Bill Joseph, was John Offerdahl overrated? That's an interesting question. I like that question. A little old timer. Old-time stuff. John Offerdahl was linebacker for the Dolphins. It was their first pick in the 1986 draft. He was a second-round pick, however. Didn't have a first-round pick that year. He's from Western Michigan. Very famous for a goal line tackle at the Senior Bowl of Bo Jackson. And there's a famous picture. You see the two of them jumping, and they're meeting at the goal line in the air. John Offerdahl was a really, really, really good linebacker for the Dolphins. Was he underrated? I don't know. Was he underrated? I mean, he was very, very good. His career wasn't that long. And he was the best player on a really bad defense for a few years, because his career spanned like 86 through 90 or 91. Then injuries took their toll and his career ended, and he wound up going into the bagel business, then into the salad business. And all his restaurants were very, very good. But I don't know if he was underrated. He always got his dues. I mean, he was a very, very good linebacker. So no, I wouldn't say it was underrated. Okay, I'm going to bring this up. Cap for Life, Butch Barry is key. Really? Why? And this is why. Hat tip to Butch Barry for the job he did with the offensive line last year, but I hear a lot of people complaining about the offensive line, and it's got to be better. Otherwise, it's going to be a major problem for the Dolphins. Well, if he did a good job, why are we complaining about the offensive line? And I wrote a story on the website, again, si.com/NFL/Dolphins, about Austin Jackson and the season he had and his development. And this notion that it was all Butch Barry, to me, is absurd. Sorry for this, for being so vociferous about it, but yeah, give Austin Jackson his props. The guy was a first-round pick for a reason, and at the time he was drafted, the book on him was he's got a high ceiling, but it might take some time to get there. Well, it took some time to get there, and then he missed pretty much all of 2022 with those ankle issues. And then when he switched to a new scheme, which, by the way, was much more suited to his skill set, then he blossomed, and then he worked on his body on top of all that. So, yeah, no, I think Butch Barry's impact in the role has been a tad overblown by my fellow members in the media, but that's just me. Marsalis, thanks, buddy. Sheesh, you see that 3-game December stretch? Yikes! Also, hat tip to you, sir. No, hat tip to you, Marsalis. Thank you very much. 3-game December stretch. Which one? There are two of them that are tough. Oh, at Houston, San Francisco, at Cleveland. Is that, if that's the one you're talking about? Yeah, that's pretty brutal. That's brutal. Yep. No, like I said at the beginning, and I'm going to wrap it up with this, is, yeah, the NFL did not do the Dolphins any favors with this schedule. Looks to me. Other than, if you like the primetime exposure, Dolphins got 5 of those games. But, yeah, there are a lot of tricky parts of the schedule. And as you can see, maybe it is past my bedtime because my voice is going. So let me put up one more time for those who may not have seen it. I would imagine you probably all have by now, but just in case, this is the Dolphin schedule. And for those who will be listening to this on an audio podcast, I apologize, but I read it at the beginning and I don't want to reread it again. But this is the Dolphins 2024 regular season schedule with 3 preseason games against the Atlanta Falcons on Friday, August 9th, against the Washington Commanders on Saturday, August 17th, and against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Friday, August 23rd. The first 2 at home, the third one on the road. And on that note, everyone, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of you guys for joining me on this live podcast, episode 219 again. If you like what you hear on this podcast, and we'll be back tomorrow with Dave Hyde, with a guest spot. Dave Hyde, the award-winning columnist from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, please subscribe, tell your friends, like, all that good stuff. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. And on that note, I am going to wrap it up and say good night, everyone. And thank you again.